It was a glorious morning in Animal Town. The sun was shining with the bright, alert light of early spring. The sky looked blue and inviting, and the air smelled fresh and clean. Now, if you don't know it, Animal Town is a lovely place that exists in the land of imagination. There's a river that flows next to one side of the town, and there's a big green meadow that stretches out like a lazy giant on the other side. All the little woodland animals live in Animal Town, inside of tree houses and cozy dens, which are laid out neatly along quiet streets. And in one of those cozy dens, under a big branching tree near the edge of town, lived the Bunny family. There were 3 sister bunnies and 3 brother bunnies, who all lived with their mother and father bunny, as well as their grandmother and grandfather bunny, making 10 bunnies in total. And they all lived together in their warm den under the big branching tree. Now, on this glorious spring morning, the bunny family had just finished breakfast, and the 6 little bunnies were ready to go outside to explore the lovely day. So they hopped out the door of their cozy home, and they stood by the doorstep looking around their quiet street. The little bunnies saw the light blue of the sky, with just a few white clouds drifting across it. They breathed in the fresh, clean air. Their little bunny noses twitched and quivered as they smelled the smells that came to them on the currents of the air. They smelled grass growing in the big meadow. They smelled flower buds just getting ready to bloom. They smelled the river full of rushing water. The 6 little bunny brothers and sisters looked around some more, and they saw their neighbours in Animal Town just beginning their day. They saw old Mrs. Chipmunk on her way to visit Grandmother Raccoon. They saw Mr. Squirrel, who lived in the tree next door, hurrying off to gather nuts for his hungry family. And they saw the little squirrel children just coming down from their home, high in the next door tree. "Hooray!" called the oldest of the squirrel children, seeing their bunny friends. "Today is the picnic." "Hooray!" said the bunny children in return. Because it was a special day in Animal Town. It was the day of the spring picnic, when all the animals of the town would gather together to celebrate the coming of springtime. The spring picnic was a town tradition since, well, as long as anyone could remember. Grandfather Bunny told stories about spring picnics when he was a little bunny. which was a pretty long time ago. And that wasn't all. Grandfather Bunny also told stories that his grandmother Bunny had told him about spring picnics when she had been a little bunny. And that was a very, very long time ago. So you can see that the spring picnic really had been happening for a long time. And for all that time, everyone in town had looked forward to it every year. And this year was no different. All the animals were eager for the coming picnic, and all of them had planned for something to bring to the feast. Animals all over town had been gathering plants and nuts and preparing tasty dishes to contribute to the picnic. The 6 little bunny children had gathered berries in the big green meadow that lay alongside Animal Town. They had a basket heaped full of fresh berries, all ready to go, covered with a pretty blue cloth that Mother Bunny had given them. The little bunnies also helped Grandmother Bunny to make a big carrot pie the day before, which she would bring to the picnic. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Where was I? Oh yes. On that glorious morning, as the bunny children perched in their doorway, calling out to the squirrel children in their tree. Hooray, they all said, excited for the picnic coming up that very day. And then the squirrel children scampered down from their tree home and hurried over to the little bunny sisters and brothers. Let's go see the picnic grounds, said the biggest squirrel sister. Well, as soon as she said that, all the little bunnies and the little squirrels saw that it was just the thing to do. So they scurried off to check with their grown-ups. For even bunny children and squirrel children must not go off without checking with their grown-ups first. And the squirrel parents and the bunny parents said yes. Their children could go and see the picnic grounds. At least, they could go so long as they didn't run to the river's edge, cautioned Mother Bunny. And provided they came back before the sun climbed too high in the morning sky, added Mr. Squirrel. The animal children all promised to stay away from the water's edge and not to be gone too long. Then they hurried off together towards the spot where the spring picnic would take place. It would be held, as it was every year for as long as anyone could remember, in the town square. This was a big open field in the center of town that stretched out next to the river. The field was a square shape, more or less, which accounted for it being called the town square, and the grass on it was neatly trimmed. The town square was where all the important events of Animal Town took place. except when it was raining or snowing, or generally too cold to be outside. Then, the town's events were held indoors at the old barn. But that's something for another story altogether. At any rate, the group of young animal friends went together along the river. The little bunnies hopped, and the little squirrels ran, both as quickly as their short little legs would take them. What fun it was to hop and race under the bright sun, feeling the air blowing over and around them, and listening to the water in the river rushing along beside them. When the friends reached the town square, they saw a group of older animals already at work setting up for the picnic. They had strung pretty pink and green bunting between some of the trees that grew around the edges of the field. They had set up tables along one side of the square, and they'd covered the tables with pink and green checked tablecloths. Now, they were working on setting up games for the animals to play when the picnic began. They put up a volleyball net and set up football goals. They put out a game called cornhole that had 2 boards with holes in them for animals to try to throw beanbags into, and they arranged a ring toss nearby. And still, there were more games and toys in a big box, which the big animals would set up soon before the picnic began. The little bunnies and squirrels scurried around in excitement, looking at all the games and decorations around the square. Just then, Teacher Owl saw the little animals and fluttered over. "Here," she called out, "you can help me with this." She showed them some rolls of bunting and asked them to help her decorate more trees on the other side of the field. So the bunny children took some of the bunting and hopped over to attach them low in some of the trees. Then the squirrel children took the other ends of the bunting and ran them up into other trees nearby, where they attached them high in the branches. In this way, the bunting crisscrossed between the trees in a lovely pattern of pink and green. When they were done with that task, Teacher Owl offered each of the little animals a lollipop and thanked them for their help. Then she fluttered off to continue setting up for the picnic, and the little bunnies and squirrels squinted upwards, and they saw that the sun was climbing high in the blue sky. It was getting later, and they had promised their parents not to stay away too long. So they hopped and hurried around the field one last time, and then they set off for home. By the time they got back to their own tree house and their own cozy den, on their own quiet street at the edge of Animal Town. The time was getting close for the picnic to begin. So the little animals darted back into their homes, the bunnies into their cozy den, and the squirrels up into their leafy tree. In their den, the bunny sisters and brothers hopped into their bathroom to wash their paws. Then the 3 bunny sisters hopped into the little bedroom they shared, which was painted a bright sky blue. And the 3 bunny brothers hopped into the little bedroom that they shared, which was painted a bright grass green. And they all changed into their prettiest spring clothes for the picnic. The oldest sister bunny wore her favorite yellow dress with a pattern of white flowers on it. The middle sister bunny wore her best blue romper and a matching bow behind her ears. And the littlest sister bunny put on her sparkly pink overalls. The oldest brother bunny wore his blue shorts and a shirt with a sailboat on it. The middle brother wore a matching shirt and shorts of fire engine red. And the little brother bunny put on his favourite orange overalls, which he still loved most of all, even if Mother Bunny said they were getting a little short for him. And then they all hopped out to the bunny's family kitchen, where Father Bunny was just putting the finishing touches on a dandelion cake. He let the little bunnies taste the leftover batter from his mixing bowl, if they promised not to get any on their nice, clean clothes. They promised eagerly. The batter tasted fresh and sweet, just as a cake for the spring picnic should. And then, at long last, it was time to leave and head to the picnic. The oldest sister bunny carried the basket of berries that the bunny children had gathered, with the pretty blue cloth laid neatly over the top. The oldest brother bunny carried the carrot pie for Grandmother Bunny. The middle bunnies each carried a basket that Mother Bunny handed to them, one filled with forks and spoons, and the other filled with napkins. To the littlest sister and brother bunny, Grandmother Bunny handed each a bouquet of flowers, which they would place on the picnic tables to make them beautiful. Then Father Bunny took up the dandelion cake he made, and Grandmother Bunny picked up the family's picnic blanket. Mother Bunny turned off all the lights in their cozy den and locked the door behind them. And then they all set out, the 3 sister bunnies, the 3 brother bunnies, the grandparent bunnies, and the mother and father bunny, all heading together towards the town square. Just ahead they saw the Squirrel Family setting off in the same direction. The little squirrels had cleaned up too, and they had also dressed in their favourite clothes for the picnic. The members of the Squirrel Family were also carrying dishes and baskets to contribute to the feast. The bunnies caught up to them at the next turning, and the children excitedly discussed all the good things they were bringing to eat. The Squirrel Family had prepared a chestnut pie and a bowl of nuts, along with acorn bread fresh from the oven. The bread was wrapped in a white cloth, and when the little bunnies came close to smell it, they could feel that it was still warm. And my, did it smell delicious! The sun was high over their heads now, and the day felt warm and wonderful. A little breeze was blowing from across the river, ruffling their fur and keeping them cool and comfortable. They were coming into sight of the town square now, and how beautiful it looked. The pink and green bunting floated and drifted in the breeze. The green leaves of the trees waved gently around the sides of the field. And the field itself was full of animals, brightly dressed in clothing of every colour of the rainbow. Animals hopped and strolled and flew and fluttered every which way around the square. The tables along the side of the square were loaded with good things to eat and drink, and these too were of every colour and shade. There was a huge platter of bright red watermelon slices. There was a blueberry pie as blue as the ocean. There was a big glass pitcher filled with sunshine yellow lemonade. There were orange carrots topped with bright green leaves. And there was a loaf of nut brown bread, the colour of damp earth. And there were many, many other lovely dishes that the animals could hardly wait to sample. The bunny family carefully laid down their own contributions on the tables. They placed the dandelion cake with the other cakes, which were decorated in all sorts of pretty ways. They put the carrot pie on a table that was full of other yummy-looking pies. They placed the bowl of berries, which the little bunnies had picked, right beside the big platter of watermelon. And the littlest bunnies proudly placed their flower bouquets, which were full of big white daisies, purple violets, and pink geranium flowers. The Squirrel Family, too, had laid out their offerings. The big chestnut pie, the bowl of glistening nuts, and the fragrant acorn bread still warm from the oven. Together, the bunny children and the squirrel children skipped and hopped along the tables looking at all the picnic foods laid out so temptingly. Then they each took a plate from the first table. Now, these were not the kind of plates you might be used to seeing on a picnic, for they were Animal Town plates. These were plates woven from the plants that grew beside the river. The animals would gather long, thin reeds that grew on the riverbank and then weave them together to form strong, lightweight little dishes. Once the animal children had taken their woven plates, they each grabbed a napkin from the basket the bunny family had brought. And these too were different than the napkins you might be used to. These Animal Town napkins were broad leaves plucked from the trees that grew at the edge of Animal Town, not far from the bunny's cozy den. Next, the little bunnies and squirrels took their woven plates and began to fill them with all their favorite things to eat. When their plates were piled high, they each took a cup, which was made from a large acorn cap. And Mr. Squirrel filled their cups with whatever they chose to drink. The biggest sister bunny had lemonade. Two of the brother bunnies wanted fruit punch, and the other bunnies chose homemade ginger ale. The squirrels had dandelion juice or nutmeg tea. Then they all carefully took their feast to a shady spot nearby. They sat down on the picnic blanket laid out by Grandfather Bunny, and they began to eat. Munch, munch, crunch. Sip, sip, slurp. It was quiet for a few moments, except for the soft little sounds of the animal children enjoying their feast. But after a little while, they began to chat as they ate. They spoke of all the fun they'd had during the winter months, playing in the snow, splashing in the rain puddles, or cuddling by a warm fire inside. They spoke of all the fun they would have in the springtime, wading in the rushing river, but only when their parents or grandparents were there to watch them, of course. And they could pick fruit and flowers among the blossoming trees. They spoke of what they would do when they were big bunnies and big squirrels. And they shared stories that their parents and grandparents had told to them. And then, when their bellies were full and their plates were empty, they stretched out and lay back. They looked up at the leaves of the trees, waving softly far above their heads. Soon, they said, they would go and play the games that were set up around the field. Oh, all the games they planned. They would try every single one. but for the moment they would rest just a bit. They felt full and comfortable, and their little legs were tired from hopping and scurrying around all morning. They felt warm from the sun that peeked through the leaves, but also comfortably cool from the breeze that ruffled their fur. They smelled all the good food, and they listened to the happy sounds of animals talking and playing all around them. They watched the shadows that danced and pranced across the trees as the soft wind moved the branches and the sun shone down serenely. They watched the butterflies and dragonflies flitting around, coasting now and then on a current of air. They heard the sounds of songbirds calling out, somewhere just out of sight. And the little bunnies and the little squirrels sighed happily, for they knew, deep down in their little bunny and squirrel hearts, that they had all the wonders of the whole world right there and right then, on that blanket at the edge of the picnic, there in the heart of Animal Town.